Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. We'll be breaking down the Cessna Citation crash with NASCAR legend Greg Biffle and his family tragic loss. Thoughts and prayers to all the remaining family members that are affected. I'll be breaking down this NTSB briefing. This will be briefing number 1. I'll do briefing number 2 after this, and then a full breakdown of all the information we have so far. So stay tuned for follow-on videos. Here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Graham. I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. Joining me today is our investigator in charge, Dan Baker. At approximately 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time yesterday morning, December 18, 2025, a Cessna Citation 550 airplane, registration number November 257 Bravo Whiskey, crashed while attempting to land on runway 28 at Statesville Regional Airport here in Statesville, North Carolina.
And Statesville is a smaller airport when it comes to a lot of these smaller airports. So here, this one's in North Carolina. A lot of times they won't have a tower, and basically you talk to the different traffic that's in the area. And so is that a factor, not having a tower? Always having a someone else up there that you can chat with is always a good thing. So does this come out later to be a factor? Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm sure it'll be some sort of a factor. Not a causal factor, but you don't have that sixth man on the basketball team up there to talk to like you would at a bigger airport. But here's runway 28. So this is the way that the crash happened. It sounds like there's some light pole damage out here, and it looks like the aircraft came in extremely low, attempting to do a landing on runway 28. All right, we'll keep going.
Carolina. There were 7 souls on board the airplane. Unfortunately, there were no survivors. Before I go on behalf of the NTSB, I want to express our most sincere condolences to the families and loved ones who lost their lives in this terrible tragedy.
I think that's a great point. I mean, a lot of times, what I've seen in the past are briefings on incidents like this, and you just get right to the business and you don't acknowledge the human loss. I mean, how big of a factor that is. The human loss is huge, and there's a lot of grieving going on. Obviously, a NASCAR sensation, Hall of Famer. The whole world feels the impact of this. So I think that's just a great step for the NTSB to have that humanness and add that in.
We know those on board were deeply rooted in this community, and we know it's especially tough on the families this time of year in this community. So you will be in our hearts, and our thoughts, and our prayers during this time. We do have a representative with us from the National Transportation Safety Board's Transportation Disaster Assistance Division here in Statesville, in contact with the family members of those who lost their lives in this terrible tragedy. They will be providing them with resources they will need to get through this tough time, and also provide updates on our investigation. Accurate information regarding fatalities and injuries stemming from this accident will be provided by the local medical examiner. The NTSB GO team arrived last night, so today was our first day on scene, first full day.
NTSB GO team, they get there, they kind of get a lay of the land, they get everything set up for the teams that are going to come in. And the NTSB has different teams for different parts of the aircraft. I mean, propulsion, they've got engines teams, metalworking teams. I mean, if you name it, if they deem that something they think could be a causal factor in an accident, they've got a team to help them with that.
I want to briefly give you some background on who we are, our processes and procedures, followed by some factual information about the ongoing investigation, steps our team is taking here on the ground, and what you can expect from us in the coming days. The NTSB is an independent federal agency charged by Congress to investigate all civil aviation accidents and significant accidents in the other modes of transportation. Our mission is to determine the probable cause of the accidents and issue safety recommendations to prevent future tragedies like this from ever happening again.
And I think that's a really good point. You got to prevent this from happening again. That's the whole point of doing all these investigations. So hats off to the NTSB for diving into these tough crashes and situations and really helping keep aviation safer with every one of these investigations.
We do not assign blame or liability. We are here on scene to gather perishable evidence, which our team methodically and systematically reviews throughout the course of the investigation to determine the probable cause. We have a team of 16 experts from the NTSB here with us, being led by our investigator in charge, Dan Baker. Dan is a senior accident investigator with more than 25 years experience at accident investigations, both at the NTSB and the Air Force. Dan and our team are also supported by our deputy.
I think that's really awesome. The fact that they've got someone that's Air Force oriented as well. The Air Force, the Navy, Marines, there's a rigorous safety program when it comes to, how that's going to operate and how that's going to go down. So having someone with that military experience and the civilian experience, I think it's just nice. It brings in different practices from both sides. And I really love that idea that someone is hired into this position at the NTSB after having that military safety experience. It's kind of similar to, fighter pilots or cargo pilots in the military that then go fly for the airlines. I just think that's a good thing because it brings in different schools of thought. It brings in different ways of operating that you might not have thought of before. So having both of those perspectives, I think, is really great.
Investigator in charge, Andrew Swick, and he is currently at the accident site at this time. I want to emphasize this is the beginning of a very long process, and we will not jump to any conclusions while we're here on scene in North Carolina, nor will we speculate. Early this morning, we held
and that's a big part of their whole investigation. They can't speculate. They need to make their decisions based off of all the facts. So when you're watching a former airline pilot, former fighter pilot like me, I can give you some of my thoughts on this, but this is, my thoughts are basically just completely my own opinions. And the NTSB is the factual data. They are the ones that will deliver the final factual briefing on exactly what happened.
Organizational meeting where we establish parties to the investigation. The NTSB offers party status to those we believe provide needed technical or specialized expertise to the investigation. Eventually, each investigative group, which I will describe in a minute, will produce a factual report, which each of the parties will verify its accuracy. Importantly, however, parties do not participate in the analysis or the report writing. Parties to the investigation so far are the Federal Aviation Administration, and they are always a party to an aircraft accident, and Textron Aviation Incorporated, which was the manufacturer of the aircraft. Additionally, Pratt & Whitney Canada, the engine manufacturer, is serving as technical advisor to the investigation.
So that's great. All the different private companies that were a part of that product come in and help. And, them doing that in good faith is great because then they're going to intertwine potential safety lessons here into future aircraft, future engines that they develop. And it's just the right thing to do. So that's great that that cooperation is there.
As part of our investigation, we form groups to examine specific areas of interest in depth. These groups include subject matter experts from the parties of our investigation, working in conjunction with our NTSB specialists on the factual portions of the investigation. For this accident, we have established the following parties. First one is systems. They will examine components of the airplane's hydraulic, electrical, navigational, pneumatic, and associated systems, together with instruments and elements of the flight control system.
So that's great because that'll tell them, was there a malfunction going on in the different instruments? Was there some maintenance that, affected some of the systems? It sounds like the weather was relatively low on the day that the crash happened. So the avionics working correctly, the ability to get back and land via some sort of an instrument approach, GPS approach, they'll dive into all that and see if that was possible or if there was something that was wrong with the actual aircraft.
The group will also examine the maintenance records. Another group is power plants, which will examine engines and the engine accessories. And the final group we have at this time, although we can add groups if necessary, is operations, which will document the history of the flight and the crew members' flight experience, training, and certification.
And that's an important one because right now they've said that there was another pilot that was a part of this. So Greg Biffle hired another pilot. It sounds like they were a former Delta Airlines pilot, and that pilot's son was also on the flight. So was this pilot capable of being a single pilot qualified pilot for the Cessna Citation II? That's a special type of type rating that gives them the ability to not operate with another qualified pilot next to them. So we got to find out who was sitting next to this pilot to back them up and what qualifications were held by both of these pilots. So the primary pilot, former Delta Airlines pilot, what qualifications was held by him, and then who was in the right seat at the time of the incident, if in fact this Delta Airlines pilot was in the left seat, which is what I would expect, since this pilot, it sounds like they were hired by the Biffle family to be their full-time pilot.
A preliminary report of this accident is expected within 30 days. However, a full investigation lasts 12 to 18 months before a final report is released. The information that we provide today is preliminary, and it's subject to change during the course of this investigation. I would now like to turn it over to our investigator in charge, Dan Baker, to share some factual information.
Yeah. Thank you, Member Graham. The aircraft was manufactured in 1981 by the Cessna Aircraft Company, and it was registered to GB Aviation Leasing, LLC. The airplane had taken off at approximately 10:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, about 10 minutes prior to the accident. The airplane had departed from runway 28 at the Statesville Regional Airport. Preliminary ADSB data showed the airplane made an initial left turn to the west, followed by another left turn back to the east towards the airport, approximately 5 minutes after takeoff. The airplane then flew a left base turn to runway 28. The initial point of impact was a runway light stanchion located about 1,800 feet from the runway threshold. The airplane subsequently impacted trees, 2 other runway light stanchions, and the airport perimeter fence short of the runway threshold before coming to rest near the runway threshold. The airplane also came to rest oriented on an easterly heading. Post-impact fire consumed the majority of the fuselage and the inboard wing sections. All 4 corners.
So as you guys can see, that's what we call an early return. So when an aircraft takes off like that and then returns within 10 minutes, it's an early return. But the fact that it was 10 minutes, that tells me that there was propulsion on the aircraft. It wasn't an immediate crash. So they're going to take off. They're going to fly that base turn. So basically going to take off from here, runway 28. And I kind of highlighted it a second ago, but basically a box pattern here. And then at some point, so the thing I'm thinking, if there's low weather decks, if you're trying to stay below the weather, that's not something that you would do in an aircraft. But if there was some sort of avionics or instrument, some sort of full electrical failure or something like that, maybe that kept them low, which is definitely not what you're supposed to do in an aircraft. When you have a malfunction, you climb up, even if you're climbing into clouds. But again, if you have some sort of avionics failure, we don't know exactly what that aircraft had, but the fact that they're assembling that avionics team gives us a little bit of details that there might be something to do with the avionics. But basically making this base turn here and then clipping some light poles and trees just means that it's coming in extremely low. Man, the fact that they even made it back towards the runway like they did is man, that's a miracle to even get close to that. And I hate using that word because obviously they perished, but the fact that they were fighting and going to the very end is what I want to highlight. But very interesting that they were so low out here towards this right side of the image, this far away from the airport. So were they trying to stay below weather decks? Man, I'm not sure at this point, but it definitely seems like the fact that they're gathering the avionics team, that's a very telling piece, I think, to all this.
Members of the airplane and flight control surfaces have been identified in the wreckage and the debris field. Both engines were present with the main wreckage. At the time of the accident, visual meteorological conditions prevailed with drizzle and broken ceilings at 1,200 and 2,200 feet, as well as a 5,000-foot ceiling.
1,200, 2,200 foot ceiling. So low ceilings, 1,200 feet. That's a normal base pattern for an aviation, like say a military jet, is going to be about 2,000 feet, 1,500 to 2,000 feet. So it's even below what a visual pattern would be for a military aircraft. But visual patterns, when it comes to these Cessna Citations or any type of business jets, are just bad ideas, in my opinion, because you don't practice them a lot. To me, it's all about GPS approaches. So going for an approach that uses all the aircraft systems to get you back to a landing, that's the way to go. But was there some avionics failure? We don't know yet.
The wind was calm with 5 statute miles visibility.
Calm wind, 5 miles of visibility, so that's pretty good. Being able to see pretty far, down, like that doesn't hamper your ability to fly and judge where the runway's at. But that cloud deck at 1,200 feet could definitely have kept them low if they tried to stay below that cloud deck.
I'll hand it over to Member Graham for any questions.
A few more things before I take questions. We are analyzing radar, ADSB data, video footage, witness statements, audio recordings, and more as part of our investigation. We will also begin coordinating wreckage removal as part of our standard investigation process, and we can move the wreckage to a safe location, make sure it's secure, and so we can follow up and conduct further analysis. I can also confirm that our team was able to locate and recover the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, one of the black boxes from the aircraft. The aircraft, as we know, it only had the CVR, did not have a flight data recorder, nor was it required to have either one of these for this flight. And that cockpit voice recorder is en route back to Washington, D.C. right now to be analyzed.
And that standard procedure, they ship it back to DC to basically their corporate office and have it analyzed there with all the people that are experts diving into that.
Ask if anyone in the public has any photos, videos, door camera video, debris, or were witnesses to this accident. We ask that you please contact us via email at witness@ntsb.gov. Again, that is witness@ntsb.gov. We will provide further updates as they become available. Our team will remain here on the ground in North Carolina as long as we believe it is necessary to gather evidence for our investigation. You can follow the NTSB on X at NTSB_newsroom or on our website at ntsb.gov for the latest information. Finally, I would like to give a heartfelt thanks to in gratitude to the first responders who responded to this accident, as well as the medical examiner's office, the airport director, local and state law enforcement, and all those who have been assisting our investigation since before we arrived and as we arrived here on scene. I know they've been working very hard. We appreciate them securing the site for us and keeping it safe while we are here. And we appreciate all they have done. I will now.
I think that's a great point, calling out the first responders and all those that go to gnarly scenes like this and do everything they can to try to minimize the damage. Hats off to all those people. All of you out there watching, I really appreciate you.
Take a few questions, but before I do, I would like to ask you to raise your hand. When I call on you, please state your name and your affiliation. Right here.
CBS News. Just a couple of questions. Do we know who was piloting the aircraft?
Chris's question is, do we know who was piloting the aircraft? At this time, we have been unable to verify who was flying the airplane. We do know 3 of the occupants did possess a pilot's license, but we have been unable to verify that at this time. But that is one of the things we're working on.
So 3 occupants had a pilot's license, but he doesn't talk about what kind of license and who should have been in what seat and what qualifications were held specifically by the main pilot, the lead pilot. Did they have a single pilot exemption? That's a higher level certification to say that you don't need another pilot with a type rating on that aircraft.
Just a couple more questions.
One follow-up, please.
Was there a Mayday?
The question was there a Mayday call? We are not aware that there was a Mayday call. Right here.
During the actors and athletic, the plane tried to return back to its land. Do we know why that happened? Was it a mechanical issue or anything of that nature?
The question is, we believe the plane was turning back to the airport immediately, maybe for some kind of issue. At this point, we are not aware if there was an actual issue or not. We are studying a lot of things. We are trying to get recordings from the various frequencies that the aircraft may have been on, and any other witness statements that may have heard anything on the common frequency. Right there.
And that's standard procedure as well, especially when there's a common frequency. So it's a traffic frequency, basically an advisory frequency when there's no tower. So that maybe there's a reason to make a radio call, but really they probably wouldn't make a Mayday call because there's no one that they're necessarily talking to yet. So without the tower right there, the fact that maybe they have some sort of avionic issue or whatever it was, it doesn't really help them to broadcast that to other traffic, because that's just going to be other aircraft that are going to be like, okay, like, thanks, thanks for letting me know. What they likely transmitted was something like, we're returning to Statesville Airport. We're on downwind, which is paralleling the runway for Statesville Airport. So likely just factual calls to other traffic to make sure they weren't going to have any type of conflict.
What can you tell us about any indications of any problems with the plane as it was going out and coming back in?
The question is, what can we tell you about if we know of anything of any issues or problems with the airplane as it was going out and that it returned to the airport? At this point, we haven't been able to verify anything. We've seen things in the media and stuff like that, but that's not verification. We're talking to witnesses and we're trying to look at or listen to recordings and whatever to see if there was any issue, but we haven't been able to verify anything at this point. Right there.
What was the duration of time from takeoff to the crash?
Question is, what was the duration of time from takeoff to the crash? It was approximately 10 minutes. Right there.
Chris Peterson, WXI TV. Have you had the opportunity to interview witnesses yet, and what kind of information have you been able to garner from them?
The question is have we had an opportunity to interview any of the witnesses at this point, and what kind of information have we received? At this point, we are doing some interviews right now on site. We're looking for additional witnesses. That's why I've put that out during the briefing. But we don't have anything to share. It's much too early to talk about any of that, and that would be go into our analysis section. Let me come over here. Anybody over here?
Queen City News. Was this C-550 Citation jet single pilot or 2 pilots approved or required?
The question is, was the Citation 550 single pilot or 2 pilot approved? The answer is both. Okay. It depends. I believe that at this point there is a waiver that you can have to single pilot operate that aircraft, and many pilots of this type of aircraft fly this aircraft single pilot with the waiver, and it can also be flown with a crew.
So there you go. Great answer, great response. We don't know yet what that main pilot had, if they had that waiver to give them the ability to not have a secondary pilot that was qualified on the aircraft. And sounds like that's standard procedure.
Question is, did the weather play any role in this accident? Well, the weather was visual flight rules, but there were low ceilings out there, and there was heavy drizzle at the time. So that is one of the three things that we really mainly look at. We look at the people operating the aircraft, we look at the aircraft itself, and then we look at the environment, and the weather is one of those we look at and will look at very closely.
Great answer, but at the end of the day, the weather always plays a part in any type of aviation incident or any type of good aviation day. The weather is the number one thing that you have to adhere to and adjust off of and respect. The weather can be very unforgiving, and so low ceilings like this, if they didn't want to fly up in the weather, if it kept them low below it, which we're not exactly sure yet, but that would be a factor. Or even if they climbed up into it and you're handling an emergency while you're in the soup is what we call it, because you can't see anything. It's a little more disorienting. If you don't have a lot of instrument experience in that aircraft, it can be even harder. So yeah, the weather definitely plays a factor, but that was a great answer.
Come over here. Sure. The question is about what is some of the damage we've seen just short of the runway 28 that we were looking at today and continue to look at. As Dan had said, the first contact was with some of the approach lighting system. There were several approach lighting systems coming to that, lights coming to that runway that were hit by the aircraft. There was also a tree line on the edge of the golf course before hitting the service road or the aircraft perimeter road out there. That many tree limbs and the trees were knocked down and broken off at that point.
So that's a significant finding, right? So hitting the approach lights means it's coming in way too low. So again, it brings up all kinds of questions. Was there engine issues, avionics issues? Maybe they weren't following an instrument landing. This brings up all kinds of questions, but the fact that they're impacting the tree, they're impacting the approach lights. The approach lights are going to be right here on the outside of the runway, basically guiding in aircraft, showing them, where the runway's at. So looks like a few light poles here. But again, this approach lighting system is going to lead you in so that you can see the runway in low visibility or at night. And so since there's drizzle going on, this is obviously a factor for hitting those poles is going to obviously detract from the aircraft's ability to fly. And it just shows that they're coming in extremely low.
The question is, did the aircraft hit the ground prior to getting to the runway? The response to that is yes, it did hit the ground before getting to the runway. The outside the airport at the fence is what the question is. It's right in that vicinity is where the witness marks are. So we're still evaluating that this time. Right here.
Was the proximity of the trees to the runway believed to be a factor at all in the plane's attempt to make an emergency landing?
The question is, was the proximity of the trees to the airport a factor in the plane's ability to land at the airport? The airport actually sits a little bit up on the hill on the plateau, so the trees would have been in line with the lighting above the ground. So we do have witnesses that said the aircraft came in very low.
So the tree is not a factor because you never plan to come in that low. And the instrument landing systems keep you up above those trees. It's charted out, it's plotted out, so the trees will never be a factor in this situation. I mean, maybe there's some situations where it could be, but no. But again, witnesses saying that the plane came in very low makes me think of a lot of different reasons why they might have, maybe stayed below the weather to try to do a visual pattern, something like that, which isn't a standard procedure unless maybe there's some X factor here that we don't know about, avionics failure, things like that.
Over here, right in the back.
Dan, Primary Communications. The plane took off on runway 10 by what we've been able to see online, and it came back to land at runway 28. Have you talked to the airport director to see why there was any reason he didn't land on runway 10 and made the turn to go 28?
So the question is, the aircraft took off on runway 10, and when it came back, it landed on runway 28. We are still evaluating why. As we looked at the winds, either direction would be appropriate. You normally want to land into the wind. There was reported no wind at that time. So that's one of the things we're looking at this point.
Okay, so I must have misspoke earlier. So runway 10, if it takes off that way, it's going to be taking off this direction to the right here. And then it's going to come back to runway 28. And if we look at some of the flight path here, we can see basically what it did. So this is the answer to that question. This is why the aircraft is going to make its way back. It's going to do basically these 10 minutes of flight. Maybe there's some sort of an issue going on, avionics issue. Here's the altitude they're flying at, 4,000 feet. Let's see, 2,000 feet. And then they get really low, 2,000. So they're getting really low right there. He gets below the weather. So 800 feet out here, this just seems way too low. So maybe there was an engine issue. Shoot. Yeah, okay. Maybe they're to descend that low that early. That is just a crazy situation because he starts getting really low right out here, almost like he's gliding it in. Ah, geez. Okay. He does get below that weather here, but I'll be breaking down this video fully in a follow-on video. I want to focus on this NTSB report for this video.
It's going to be some time to get to that.
Have you been able to determine if there possibly maybe some other aircraft in the area that forced him to make the go around?
Question is, were there maybe some other aircraft in the area that forced him to go around? At this time, we're not aware of any, but we're looking at any radar, ADSB data. I don't think we saw any initially on the ADSB data out there that there were other aircraft. That's all I have on that at this time. Blue Jack. The question is, what was the length of the debris field? I think we believe the first contact was 1,800 feet from the approach end of the runway. So it's fairly long, and it is scattered wide and out. So it's going to take some time to document all of that. We were unable to get our drone launched today with the high winds. So we want to get that digitally documented with the drone here, hopefully tomorrow, and we'll get a better idea of how wide and how much debris is out there. Right there.
That'll be great. That'll be solid getting the drone out there, and that'll probably give them a much better idea of where exactly the first impact happened. But again, seeing that graphic play just makes me really concerned at why they got so low coming in that close to the airport.
The question is, what kind of statements or evidence might witnesses or videos be able to provide us? Videos sometimes will tell us a lot, give us additional information about maybe where the aircraft first struck the trees or something like that. Additional video on approach would be really helpful to us to get an idea of how high or low that aircraft was. Witnesses sometimes with something they heard, something they saw, things like that. We've received a lot of things, but we have been unable to verify any of it at this point, any of it as being credible. Right there.
There have been some media reports about one of the victims texting a family member saying, quote, "We're in trouble." Are you aware of that text? It's veracity and/or is it playing a role in your investigation?
Question is, there may have been a report of somebody texting out from the aircraft that they were in trouble. At this time, we're not aware of that. If somebody is aware of a text or anything like that, please make us aware of it and let us know via email, and then we'll contact you. The same with the videos. If you have a video, contact us, and we'll give you a way to send it to us, because sometimes those videos don't always come across with a straight email. Right there. Question is, do we have an ETA of when the airport will open? At this time, I can't tell you that. Like I said, we still are in the process of documenting the accident site, and it'll be at least through tomorrow at this point. Right here.
From Dr. Athletic, you said some witnesses had said a plane was coming in very low. What else have witnesses said about anything you may have seen?
The question is, I made a mention of some witnesses talked about the aircraft being very low, and you're asking what have other witnesses said. At this point, we haven't been able. I haven't been able to speak with our team on that, and it's information that we want to first verify before we're definitely sure. I mean, we're able to verify the aircraft was low because of the contact with the approach lighting and the trees, but the rest of it we haven't been able to verify at this point. 2 more questions.
Again, coming in low like that, that's going to be probably one of their main investigative points. So why did the aircraft have to get that low? Why did they descend? Were they trying to get below the weather, or was there some sort of a engine failure that was forcing them to descend, and then they almost made it? Oh, man, that information will be front and center for the investigation.
This specific type of Cessna, have there been past issues or crash investigations with this specific type of plane?
The question is, have we had similar investigations and crashes of this aircraft and everything? We do a lot of crash investigation out there. There's quite a few every year. I say this aircraft has been around a long time, and there are quite a few of them still in service. So I would say aviation's very safe, and I don't see any specific issues with this aircraft that are significant compared to any others at this point. Last one.
That's a good point to make, that they're not singling out this aircraft for anything in particular.
How old is the aircraft is the question. It was manufactured in 1981, and there's a lot of aircraft out there that are a lot older than that. As long as you keep up with your maintenance and inspection programs that all these aircraft should be on, they can fly for quite a long time. Okay.
Which is a wild thing, right? Like, imagine a car from 1981 that you just have to keep updating and doing the maintenance on. Not going to be the easiest thing in the world. I'm sure some of you out there, it's no big deal. But aircraft that are older do necessitate a lot more maintenance, and it's just a fact that a new aircraft isn't immune to something happening, but an older aircraft, even with the best maintenance, in my opinion, is more susceptible to something going wrong. Avionics, airframe, whatever. The older the aircraft is, the more inspections need to be done, and the more diligent people need to be on the maintenance side of things.
That's all I have. Thank you.
So there you go, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I think the big picture for me is going back to why they got so low, and likely that'll come out in briefing number 2, which I'll be doing right after this. So tune into that one, and then I'll do a full breakdown of the incident later on today. So check out that video. So 2 follow-on videos for this one. Thoughts and prayers with the Biffle family, all those affected by this. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to support the channel, become a channel member. That helps me do videos like this for you pretty much every day, and it's because of the support of the channel members that I'm really able to do that. So it's called the Max Ready Room. Click that link in the description. Join the Max Ready Room for lives, 2 to 3 live streams, members only live streams, where we get more into the details of events just like this, and also other military breaking events, aviation breaking events around the globe. So I'll see you guys in the Max Ready Room. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.